relentless life is the only life worth living. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Relentless Life. I am your host, Relentless Jake, and we have a treat for you. I have my good friend with me. For years, he's been following the channel. For years, he's been following my company. He's been a part of it as far as he's done a lot of help for us in the past when I was doing videos. He's a wrestler. He's been a wrestler for years. He's helped wrestlers out. He's practiced and coached with wrestling. So his background goes athletic, but he also has done a lot of cool things in life, and I can't wait for him to share his background with you. This is Brian. Brian, good to see you, bud, and thanks for being on.
Jake, it's a pleasure. I appreciate you having me on.
It's my pleasure, man.
Yeah, I've been looking forward to this for a long time.
Yeah, so
I'm honored.
Why don't you go into detail just briefly on like who you are, just briefly like what you're doing and like what brought you to the podcast in the beginning, and then why you're here now.
Yeah, so 27 years old, and grew up here in Oak Park, Illinois. I was adopted at 5 months old. My mother is Filipino, and my dad was a white man from Union City, Tennessee.
Wait, stop for a second. How does that work?
How does that work? Love.
That's right.
That's just one simple word, just love. And what brought me to this podcast is I thought about diversity, how personal it is in this country, how it has divided so many good people.
Yeah.
Because this society often looks at color or ethnic background. And growing up in a mixed household, I didn't see that because I wasn't taught that. And I believe that this nation would be a greater place if we could all just respect one's ethnic background and not judge solely like, who's that white guy or who's that black guy? Mm-hmm. I'm not doing business with them. Look what they did to us several hundred years ago. Like, what about now? What about now? All I see, like you and me, all I see is another human being.
Yeah. That's
it.
Yeah.
And I don't see color. If you're a good human being, that's all that matters.
You know, it's going to be an interesting talk, you know, with what we're going to get into. And I don't even know what we're going to get into. But
who knows?
You know, it's years ago when we met, it wasn't as pronounced as it seems to be these days. And I think there's a lot of things that have to do with it. I think social media is a big part of it. I think the media, the mainstream media, is also a big part of it. But I want to get your opinion on it. Before we get your opinion on this, though, because I think it's extremely important what you think about it, I am way concerned on your opinion of this. This is called Arise Kombucha, and it is from Chicago, Illinois. I've never heard of it. I'm told it's pretty good stuff. We haven't broke it open yet. I haven't tried it. Have you ever had kombucha, Brian?
I've never had kombucha, Jake.
So you're going to get the real reaction from Brian today as we break these open. I don't know if this is a twist top. It doesn't look like it, so I came prepared, and I'm going to break ours open for us so we can try this together. Leave that there. Made in Chicago, Illinois. I don't know if Chicago is known for kombucha. We'll find out. And you know what? Look, don't feel bad if you don't like this. A lot of people who've been listening to the podcast, yourself included, know that when I first tried it, I did not like it.
Yeah.
So, you won't hurt my feelings.
I'm not concerned about that.
What's that?
I'm not concerned about that.
No, I know you're not. I told Brian off camera, I was like, I hope I don't like this. Because this, I'm not going to say it, this is the most I've spent on a single bottle and then 2 bottles of kombucha. More than the one I originally bought in LAX. So, yeah, let's enjoy it.
Cheers to you. Well, It's different.
You know, on the podcast, you have to drink the whole thing.
I didn't sign no contract.
I think I like it. But again, I've grown accustomed to the taste, so it takes some time. I mean, obviously, I like this one doesn't have a lot of burn to it. We call it like that burn that you get from that carbonation.
Yeah, yeah.
But it does have like a little bit of that zip.
Yeah, kind of like a mustard zip.
Mustards. Interesting. Yeah, I guess you can.
Yeah. Like I could bring a hot dog in here right now. In liquid form.
All right. So that's, we probably won't see, if you want me to grab you some water or whatever, we'll do that.
No, I'll be all right.
Something. I'm assuming, when you get desperate, you're probably going to grab it. I'll be curious if you finish this.
It's an acquired taste.
Yeah, definitely. It took me 2 years to appreciate it. And then once I did, I became addicted. Like, in a good way. I gave up coffee. I started drinking kombucha specifically on the road. And now it's like I like to go to specific states that make their own. And I came across this one where it says, I was going to get you a Kavita, which I actually think the Kavita is a better one to start. This is more like a natural flavor. This is how kombucha is probably supposed to taste if you were to talk to the poet. Scott Poe, he's Poetic Fitness. He's a big kombucha connoisseur. He basically grows his own or makes. You don't grow it, do you? You make your own.
You make your own, right?
Yeah. Schmuck. So this is actually a really bad one to start with. The Kavita you might have enjoyed more, but since it was like from Chicago, I was like, let's put him for some pain.
Give it a shot.
Yeah.
It's not that strong, like you said. I mean, it's not that bad.
He's having another sip, though.
Yeah.
And this flavor, I didn't talk about the flavor. It is a turmeric ginger. So if you don't like ginger anyway, you're not going to like any of the kombuchas that have ginger in it. But, Kavita has a lot of different brands that I think, even if you're not a kombucha, lover, I think you can probably get past it. This one, you actually have to be a kombucha person. You look like you're going to punch me in the face.
Next. Listen to this dude. Kombucha person.
So you're not going to be drinking any kombucha while you're on the road. Here's a guy who travels a lot himself. But so you don't travel as much as you used to because you used to go road to road as well.
Yes.
Why don't you go ahead and talk about that?
Yeah, so almost 5 years ago, I started my career in truck driving. I started over the road. I traveled all over the West. I've probably seen California well over 50 times in a semi-truck.
Beautiful drive, right?
It is.
Yeah.
It really is. Before I resigned, I believe I logged well over 335,000 miles.
Wow, that's crazy.
I was 22 when I started.
So that sounds like a lot to me. How is that in like a perspective of someone in your profession? Is that a lot of mileage or is that pretty average?
Well, it depends.
Yeah.
It depends who it is. To some it's average, and to some it's, hey, you're doing pretty good. And for me, it was pretty good because I started out really young. So
you did, and I remember when you started driving like over the road, you were gone all the time.
Yeah. I was lucky to see my house like once a week.
Yeah, right.
Maybe less. But it was my way to get my foot in the door in this industry. I decided to get over the road until I got tired of it or until I met Mrs. Wright. Mm-hmm. And I just got tired of it. After almost 2 years, they weren't really giving me what I wanted as far as time off.
Right.
And then I looked at the mileage I had, and my nose is clean. That's the number one thing for trucking. You don't have to have a whole lot to qualify for a job as long as you're clean. and responsible and reliable.
Right.
So I'm like, you know what? It's time to experience local. And I quit that job and I got a local position. And it's been good.
Mm-hmm.
I've been able to come home every day.
Yeah, that's nice though, right?
It is. Still work long hours, but that comes with the territory.
Sure.
You know, it ain't no 9 to 5. You're working long hours. Things can happen on the road. Things can happen at a delivery that hold you up longer than what you need. But it's all in the learning experience. So
one of the things with, like, when I see truck drivers on the road, one of the things I'm actually impressed with is, especially in this town, when they're going through tight turns, they areas where I'm like, how does a semi make that maneuver? And then you'll see some absolute dingbat just cut them off or won't let them in. And, you know, it's always some Honda or Jeep. All those people out there who drive Hondas and Jeeps, don't get all offended and rake me over the coals. But you get the point. It's somebody who's just driving like a tool. How do you get past that? Is there ever cases where it's like you literally just can't move because cars aren't letting you in?
Yes. I've been put in those circumstances a few times where I couldn't get over because they're in my view, and if I do, I'm gonna kill them.
Yeah.
If I move over.
Right. And they don't see it that way. All they see is like,
no,
you're holding me up from getting my latte before I go to work.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's it. They see it as they've been working all day, so they want to get home. Well, you driving, you're just trying to get home. Me driving, I'm still working.
Yeah.
You know, people don't think about it. I'm still working, and I'm in your way. How about you let me get in and just hang on a second? You know, everybody's in a hurry.
Yeah.
To get nowhere.
Sure.
And people don't realize them cutting me off or them getting in my way to the point where it's like we can't move. You're actually holding up traffic and making, this process longer.
Yeah.
I've had a circumstance where a car was on my right side and I just hollered out and I'm like, I'll stop traffic all day until you move out of the way.
Yeah.
That's fine. And then they got the message.
Yeah, I mean, and it's like, to be honest, if you wanted to, you can really bully everybody off the road. And I know that's not going to be helpful for anybody because people can get obliterated from the truck you drive. And it's, what's probably interesting is listening to the podcast. Most people are probably either driving or doing something, where they're involved in the road where you're going to see this circumstance. And, there's times where I know I'm guilty of like, man, I should have let that truck in. And then you're in a really precarious situation where you almost have to floor it to get ahead of them. And now everybody's in the danger zone. And you touched on something that's 100% accurate, and it's such a pet peeve of mine, is when people are on city streets and they feel like they need to go 90 and cut everybody off, and they wind up in the same stoplight as you do.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like, hey, tool bag, what's the point of that?
There's none. I laugh at those people.
Yeah.
Like, oh, okay, you hot rod, you cut me off, and 5 seconds later you're at a complete stop, and I'm right behind you.
So do you drive a lot of downtown routes these days?
I used to. Maybe some 5-6 months ago, they sent me to Chicago every day. And
I don't like driving in Chicago with my little Nissan.
Yeah, it's definitely a challenge. It's I always have my head on a swivel. That's what I have to do.
Yeah.
But 10 times more down in the city.
Sure, you have to.
I mean, 10 times more. People are crazy in the city, and it's not just people in cars for the city. For those of you that are watching that from Chicago, you got your street hustlers.
Yep.
Your crackheads.
Yep.
And your prostitutes.
And those are just your politicians. And then you have like people who are doing the same things as the politicians. Sorry, I had to dig at the politicians. It's kind of a thing on my podcast these days.
So I've noticed.
Come on, Beetlejuice. Come on, forgive me. Poor Beetlejuice. I should have never insulted that guy. He's a classic.
Yes, he is.
Are you a Halloween fan? I never really talked to you about that. I know you know I am.
Yeah, you're way more than I am. I mean, you're like the nerd for Halloween.
Yeah, that is very true. I have some big plans this year for video and Halloween. I don't want to share anything, but I guess I can kind of share a little bit since we're talking about it. Plus, I'm just so excited that we're finally like, you're busy, I'm busy, and then somehow there was a meeting of like this time, and this almost didn't happen. I started getting worried as we were doing this because I didn't think I was going to figure out the sound thing again. And Brian's sitting there nice and calm, probably thinking about strangling me with one of these pillows. And I did finally figure it out. But yeah, I since we're doing this, I do have a thought that I might start to go around the nation and do live workout videos in haunted houses or like haunted hotels.
Ooh.
And I might do a series of those during October. That's a thought. I don't know if I am. If you're interested in something like that, leave it in the comment section. Maybe we can make a thing of it.
I like I dig it, man. I like the idea.
Yeah.
And because I've seen you in costume makeup before, you look pretty bad, dude.
Thanks.
So that would be good. I mean, if you ever had a guest that would look somewhat, well, not somewhat, a lot scary in a haunted house, all you'd have to do is like paint white on this skin.
One thing you're going to learn about Brian is his sense of humor is probably just as demented as mine. He will dig himself as much as he will dig me tonight. And I say tonight because we're late at night or later at night. But since that's true, what in the world happened there?
It's on the timer.
Oh, we're talking about ghosts and stuff, and all of a sudden, there's a thing about it. We're gonna have to shut this light off. Is there a way to shut it off?
Yeah.
Freaked me out there for a second.
I never seen you scared before.
Well, okay, so let me explain that. And you know what's actually ironic about this is, and nobody's gonna see this podcast yet with the Promethean, but I actually did. She was on the recent podcast. Thanks, Brian. And the Promethean did something during one of my live workout videos that I never got a chance to tell you. I was going to tell you during when we were off camera. But one of the live workouts, I had like a tech issue, and it was just buffering like the whole time. It wouldn't actually even go live. It showed a screen and then it paused. And the Promethean said, "Put the mask over the mirror," and because there was a mirror behind me, and I was like, "Oh, okay." So I did that, and sure enough, it went live. And it was strange because it was kind of like choppy, but the whole time there was live video. And in the podcast that's going to be coming up, probably either next week or the following week, you're going to see the Promethean. She kind of talks about that. But it's really interesting when you bring that up because she might have, if that was like legit, like she would have like a story behind that. So I thought, wow, how proverbial is that? The light turns on. We're talking about Halloween. So yeah, and look. She did a few things during that podcast. I cannot wait for some people to watch this when it comes up. That freaked me out, and I was telling you about it. And it's interesting because I'm not one that would, and forgive me, but I'm not one that would believe in any of that.
Yeah.
And the fact that it happened was crazy.
Yeah. I'm glad I got to see it firsthand. Oh man, that's great.
I don't jump a lot either. It's usually in the horror movies I'm laughing, And
So am I.
yeah. See, this is the side of Brian you're gonna probably see most of the night. It's gonna be fun. Most of this podcast. The night, the day, whatever it is. Are you digging this or what?
It's all right.
As you start to get used to it, it might become a taste that you start to enjoy.
Yeah, I mean, I like the after, taste of it. I'd probably go for what you had.
Yeah.
The
Kavita stuff.
No, the lady.
The Lady of Apple, or the Pink Lady Apple, or whatever.
I'm interested to try that.
That Health Aid makes that one. Actually, Health Aid's turned out to be a brand that I've really enjoyed lately. Originally, Kavita was the first one. I was like, okay, I could do this. And then when I got into Health Aid, I was like, this is kind of there isn't as much sugar, but I actually think you would like that one. They didn't sell that in the store I went to. But when I saw Chicago, I was like, come on.
Yeah.
Brian, Chicago. We're Chicago. We got to do it.
I mean, like I said, it's an acquired taste.
Yeah.
Starting to get used to it.
We'll just have to have you on more podcasts.
I can do that.
Well, you say that now. We'll see how this goes. You might be like, I'm never doing that again, Jake. We're done. We're done with this.
What do you think I am? Some kind of a girl?
All right, so I want to reel it back because I was sort of addressing, you made a joke. It was basically a black-white joke.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna call it's usually an elephant in the room, and it really shouldn't be, right? And so I kind of want to open that up to you and just kind of let you talk about your perspective when you were growing up, because you mentioned you had a white dad, and you said your mom was Vietnam, right?
Filipino. Yeah.
Correct. And I know that. I don't know why I said Vietnam.
It's okay. Yeah, I mean, surprisingly, I didn't get bullied about it too much in school. We got more so looks, especially when I was really tiny.
Yeah.
With my dad especially. He's 71, 72 at the time. It was this white man and this little black kid.
Right.
What are they doing over here? Son, are you sure you're with him? And I said, yeah, that's Dad. And we got that couple of times in the grocery store.
Interesting.
Yeah, because whenever I saw candy, I was a wandering kid. And
I'm still like that with candy.
Then when I'd wander back to him and like, where's his parents?
Mm-hmm.
Sir, is this your child? Yeah. What's his name? Brian. And, it never really fazed my dad. If it did, he never showed it.
Mm-hmm.
He was one of a kind. It seems like the longer he's gone, the more I appreciate him. There are several African-American barbershops in Oak Park. My parents,
good ones, by the way,
and good ones.
Yeah.
Yes, my parents chose to take me at 18 months old to Madison and Laramie to Adams Barbershop.
Yeah,
and I look back now. It was a lesson. It was learning for me. Mm-hmm. I grew up with all sorts of kids. Black, white, Hispanic, different racial backgrounds, but to take me to the west side of Chicago, to let me see and get more in touch with my people as far as black people.
Yeah, and I'm going to stop you for a second, because those people that are listening and not watching, Brian actually put that in air quotes, so you guys know he's just repeating what society is saying. He's not saying that.
Yes. Yeah, and to go there and to get accustomed to, all right, this is our lingo. This is the way we talk. It was cool because from 2 years old till about 23, 24, that was like family to me. And we got looks the first few times.
Sure.
I can remember because I would hold his hand walking in the shop. Give us strange looks like this and what y'all doing over here, And fortunately, what broke the ice was the owner, JR. He has a Southern background as well as my dad.
Yeah.
And Union City is just a few hours away from Memphis. So JR never called my dad by his name. He just called him Memphis.
Nice.
And both of them were loud every time we walked in. Hey, JR! Hey, Memphis, what's going on, man? What's happening? And people would look at him like they were weird.
Yeah.
Like, how does JR know this white man? And sometimes they would embrace, go as far as hugging it out.
Nice.
And never had no trouble at all. And, like, the looks just got less and less. He'd sit in his chair and read a newspaper while I was getting cut.
Yeah. And would you say the looks kind of came from just probably a perspective of, it's they're unaware of something new is happening. It wasn't really a sign of like, you guys don't belong here. It was just, it's weird because they don't see it very often.
Yeah.
And then suddenly there was this common ground of two individuals that were able to sort of bond just based on a place that they can relate to, the place that, they were sort of from. And now it opens a whole new world for you.
Yeah. Yeah, you might have a point there. I think that's what it was, because how many of us did you see?
Right.
You didn't see that often, and you got to remember this is the mid-'90s. Things were just starting to turn over.
Yeah.
He lived in Cicero at the time, and a lot of that neighborhood was, kind of racist.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm gonna, if you don't mind, I'm gonna pause a second, because there's a history behind Cicero that maybe some people don't realize. It's the city of the town of basically Al Capone. A lot of Italians started there, and then kind of there were some gang issues. The gang issues kind of split, and then it turned into more of a racist area back in, I guess, the 60s. Where a lot of that started. You're nodding your head. You would know more about that than me, because you grew up in Cicero area, and then now you're in Oak Park. And Oak Park has a really nice, it's really diverse. It's sort of like it's like the extension suburban area of Chicago, if you want to even call it a suburb. It is like an extension of Chicago, but it is considered a suburb.
Yeah, especially by Austin.
Yeah,
I mean, it's right on the border. You got that little strip that is Oak Park.
Yeah.
But then more of it is hood. More of it is Austin neighborhood.
Right.
So I get the extension part of that.
I'm sorry for cutting you off, but
no, you're good.
Just want to make sure they got that history there.
No, absolutely, that's important. But a lot of those races started dying off.
Yeah.
And the kids didn't want to keep up the home, so they moved further west out of there, and that's when more Hispanics started coming in. And from the time I could crawl till about 10 years old, I spent almost every weekend in Cicero. And a lot of my summers, I had a lot of Hispanic friends and black friends here, white friends here. I have to kind of chuckle when I hear people saying, well, that group of people, I don't know about them. They're known for racism. Their family, their past, or whatever the case is. Racism is taught. It's not inherited.
Right.
It's taught. I had someone ask me, "Isn't it weird? You have a white dad and a Filipino mom." I'm like, "What's weird about it?" Well, I mean, they don't look like you. I said, I don't care if they don't look like me.
Yeah.
They raised me. They're my family. It's love. That's it. Yeah. I used to get mad at this. They point at my dad. That's not your real dad, is it? I said, yeah, that's my real dad.
How old were you during this time when people are asking you questions like this?
I probably 10.
So 10 years old, and there's already adults instilling certain thoughts in your brain, as you're still very
adults and
pliable
kids.
Mentally. Yeah.
Yeah, adults and kids.
Interesting.
Honey, that's Yeah, like a teacher. Well, I mean, no, your real dad, like your birth dad. Here's the difference between real and biological. Biological is just self-explanatory. They birthed me. My birth parents, they brought me into the world, and that's it. Real is Joe and Tess. They raised me. They pushed me. They cared for me. They loved me. That's real.
And Joe and Tess, father and mother.
My father and mother, yes.
Correct.
And that's what's real. I've gotten asked, like, were you ever resentful towards your biological parents? You know, for 5 months old, you're giving up for adoption and all that. And I'm like, no, I actually thank them.
Yeah.
I thank them for bringing me here. And for my mother to make the decision, I can't take care of them.
You thanked them. That's interesting.
If I ever saw them, if I ever got to meet them, I'd say thank you.
So you never met them, but you're saying if you did, you would say thank you.
I would.
Yeah,
I would absolutely say thank you, because she was young when she had me.
Yeah.
And, you know, God only knows what could have happened to me.
Sure.
Had I stayed in her care. She didn't know it. She was a teenager. You know, she didn't have a lot of financial help from her parents either. So, you know, I was, I didn't have a lot of nutrition. They said I was sick. They had to bring me to the hospital. I could have died.
Yeah.
No money for baby food. So, you know, God said not yet.
Yeah. Yeah, he sure did.
Yeah.
He sure did. And then as you were growing up, you said love instead of hate. And I don't want to sound like mushy about that, but it is in such a way, like your response to that is such a mature reaction. Even at your age now, you're still young, but it sounds like even then at a younger age, you know, your parents, your real parents, as you call them,
Yes.
Certainly did a lot to, you know, sort of morph that thinking, right?
Yes. Yeah. And it was shown. That's the difference. See, in this society, it's just lip service. Yeah. I love you, and nothing behind it. Mm-hmm. Whereas my parents, when they said they loved me, they had something to follow that up with. And we weren't a family that said it all the time. We more so showed it.
Yeah.
You know, it was more so shown. And I grew up watching that. You know, it was acts of kindness. That's what love is. And maybe when, you know, telling somebody you care about something that they don't want to hear but they need to hear, that's also love. Like, you and me have known each other for almost 10 years.
Yeah.
You know, I can tell you haven't always said things that I liked, but it's what I needed to hear at the time, looking back at it. And that was brotherly love. So, once again, action. So that's what I learned from my parents over anything.
One thing I've learned about Brian in the years I've known him, and it has already been 10 years. It doesn't even seem that long, but it has been a while, is you're not going to find a guy that's more pliable in his heart. And then once he has that on track, you're not going to find a guy you wouldn't rather be in the trenches with. Meaning, if there's something like precarious going on, whether it's physical or whether it's just something where you needed somebody to be there. Brian is passionate about what he does, and that's one thing I know for sure is that there were times where, you know, I think a friend will bring things up, and you've always been very honest to me about video and things I've done with company, and very supportive, by the way. And friends will do that, and then of course, you know, friends will bust each other's chops here and there, and that's what makes it. I think that's what makes it that brotherly love side too.
Yeah,
there's a religious aspect to it, but I think there's also just a common ground of, like, just, you know, two guys together that turn out to be good buddies.
Yeah, and that's the beauty part of it. You know, just trying to encourage one another to be better in whatever it is that they're doing. I like to think that's how our relationship is. So, and I've been fortunate to have that friendship. 'Cause I don't have that many friends that I talk to on a regular basis, or a friend that I can call that's like, when the grits hit the pan, they're there.
Yeah.
I have a few select friends.
Yeah.
You know, oh, Brian, you have a lot of friends. What do you mean you have a little friend? No, I have a lot of people that knew me in high school as a wrestler.
Yeah.
And if I saw them, hey, good to see you. But as far as friends to actually talk to, you're one of the few that's on the list. You know, it's very few and far between. You don't need that many anyway. But, you know.
Most of them aren't true friends. I think the real definition of friends are the ones that stick around with you when things are in turmoil. That's when you get a definition of what your friends are.
I'm glad you brought that up. Great example of that. You find out who your real friends are usually when someone dies.
Yeah.
And boy, did I find that out. And it sucked.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it was good that I found out then, because if this death didn't happen, I would have been kept getting strung along. And, you know, as bad as it hurt with this one friend, I cut her off for 3.5 years after my dad died.
And that's the main death you're talking about right now.
Yeah.
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 So when did your dad pass away?
He passed away August of 2013.
Yeah.
And it was a week before my 20th birthday. And
so you were still 19 years old.
I was still 19, yeah. It was a week of planning for a funeral. The funeral itself was the day after my birthday. And then when he died, right at his bedside, I decided I would be the one singing at his funeral. I didn't wait a few days. It was right at the hospital. And I got through it. But during that week, I talked to a good friend of mine, and I told her, you can come in the house. There's people coming in and out with food, but you're more than welcome to come. And at the time, she lived like 5 minutes away from me.
Yeah.
Didn't come over. And said she would come to the funeral. So the funeral rolls around, and I'm putting on my suit and tie, and I get a text asking me if I could pick her up. And I'm like, no, you're the opposite direction of the funeral home, and the family has to be there earlier. Well, my ride bailed on me. I'm like, okay, you're a person that doesn't have a car. You take a lot of public transportation. You should have had 2 or 3 plans set up just in case something happened.
Sure.
And so that was frustration number 1. Number 2, the visitation was like 3 to 8 or 9 at night and no show. And it's like all these hours roll by and you don't find one way to get here. I don't believe that, because my dad loved this friend of mine. We were thick as thieves since my freshman year of high school.
Yeah.
And my dad tried to match us many times. Brian, you ought to get with her. He loved her very much. And the next day, we met up at a park down the street from my house, and I kind of chewed her out. And it was pretty ugly, but I cut her off for 3.5 years. And after that, she had tried to reach out, and this time it was an actual legit attempt, because she had tried to get a hold of me numerous times over that period of time, and all of them were just like, I don't even want to hear it.
Sure, yeah.
But this attempt made me think a little bit. I'm like, okay, old man is gone, and water's under the bridge. I can choose to keep this like real thick burden, this thick grudge, or I can just let it go. Just let it go. I really didn't want to, but I did. I made the decision in St. Paul, Minnesota, in a hotel room because I was over the road. Mm-hmm. And I came back.
This is when you were doing a lot of driving.
This is when I was doing a lot of driving, yeah. And
that's tough. That's tough by itself because I know how lonely that can be.
Yes, it is. But I got back to Chicago and we met up, and it was just like a sigh of relief when I saw her. And I don't know, it was just like a weight. I didn't even say anything to her just yet. And it was just kind of like a weight. 3.5 years seemed like 10.
Sure.
And we said a lot of things to each other. She did a lot of apologizing, and she was very remorseful. And it was good for us to actually have calmer and cooler heads, years later.
Sure.
But I did forewarn her. We buried the hatchet. Things will never be like they were. And they haven't.
No.
We're very good friends. I love her to death. Now that I've gotten to the optimistic side, Jasmine is awesome.
Yeah.
So we don't see each other as often, but maybe when the weather gets better, we will.
Sure. No, and I think, again, that goes back to what I said about your character, is that it would be difficult after a time like that to turn around and say, okay, that's, like you said, water under the bridge.
Yeah.
Where it would be easy to kind of wish maybe she'll get eaten by a pterodactyl, and that would be okay too. But I want to address a lot of your demeanor about this, because you're 27.
Yeah.
And when the more we get into this podcast, the more people are going to hear some things that come out of your mouth that are just sort of old soul like statements. And it's your ability to surround yourself, I think, with, and you've done this, most of your life, you surround yourself with people, I think, that are older than you a lot of times.
Yes.
And I think you relate to a lot of people that are older than you. And there's a side of you that's going to be interesting. I can't wait to talk about, but I'm not going to bring it up yet. But there's a work ethic with that old soul. So I want you to talk about that, because I think it starts with your drive towards sports, in particular wrestling. And then you talked about, your driving and how you're over the road and you're working all these hours. I know there was times where you're doing like 15-hour days. You probably still are. I don't know. So why don't you talk about some of that build up to that? Like, am I correct when I say wrestling was like the main part that sort of slingshot you towards this mindset?
Good lands, yes. Quite frankly, without the sport of wrestling, I don't know if I'm sitting here today, to be honest with you.
Why would you say it like that?
Because life has thrown me a lot of curves after high school, and I look back at my early 20s and some of the really horrible things that I've done or have been done to me.
Yeah.
I don't know if I would have gotten through it without the life lessons I've learned in wrestling, the mental toughness, endurance that I've learned in wrestling. By far, the hardest thing I'll ever physically do is wrestle for Oak Park and River Forest.
And I don't want to stop you there for a second, because you guys can Google check this. What Brian brought up is Oak Park River Forest. That's in Illinois, Chicagoland area. They're one of the best wrestling teams, not in the state, in the nation, and they're competitive year after year. Now, I want to preface that by saying this is a public school. This isn't a private school where they do any recruiting. I know they have a filter program, but this is a public school, so you're in a very competitive natured environment of wrestling already. So, and with one of the great coaches that has taught you this mindset to begin with, and he's a legend in Chicago, by the way. You could talk about him if you want to as well.
Yes, Coach Mike Powell,
Yeah.
one of the greatest men I've ever known. He's the one that recruited me. I remember the day that I met him because I was intimidated. I remember it like it was yesterday. He came in my history class, looking for a Brian Toledo. Yeah, it's me. Says here you signed up for wrestling. No, I didn't. Yeah, that's your name right there. I'm like, no, I didn't even know you had a wrestling team. The only wrestling I had ever heard of was sports entertainment.
Yeah.
And I had no conception about any collegiate or high school wrestling.
Wait, so he came to your class
Yeah.
and tried to claim you signed up for something as a way of recruiting you?
Yes, because I signed up for two different things. I signed up for a jazz band because at that time I was really heavy into the Beatles.
Yeah.
So I thought if I sign up, maybe I can learn how to play the bass like Paul McCartney, who I think is one of the most underrated bass players in rock and roll.
That's a strong statement, Brian.
It is. Look up his bass riffs. You'll see what I mean.
Wow. I'm not going to challenge you. Not in music, bud.
So I signed up for that. That never happened. And then I signed up for a vocals club to enhance my singing voice. Also never happened. So he made it known that my last name sounds pretty cool. Sounds like a wrestling name, Toledo. And so
It is a wrestling name.
And so he found out my history class and looked me up and all that. So he's like, here's a paper that talks about our program. It teaches you about self-discipline. If you like muscles, you want to get big, we teach you how to lift weights and all that.
He's pushing all the hot buttons that
Yes.
teenage boys want to hear.
Oh, yeah, he is.
Yeah.
And as far as me signing up for wrestling, I said, that's not my handwriting. He takes a quick back look and goes, well, anyway, here's what it reads about our program.
he just scribbles your name down.
Yeah, it was not
paper.
my handwriting whatsoever.
This guy, people can learn from him. Like he was able to. It does explain why this team is competitive year after year. Now he's not coaching per se, not at Oak Park anymore.
Right.
But he still has such an influence on the sport, in the community, and just in general, just with wrestlers in general. You say his name around here, and everybody snaps to attention, especially a former person who's wrestled under him. So
Yes.
I wanted to at least address the background of the Oak Park. So I'm sorry, I wanted to pull that back because that was something I did not want to go past.
No, you're good, man. I mean, that was basically it. He said, take a day or so, think about it, tell your parents. And, there's my classroom. You come to me and you tell me if you want in or not. And nice to meet you. And that was our first meeting. And I didn't really have any intentions of joining any sport anyway. So I'm like, well, why not? What have I got to lose? So I joined. Got my physical.
What caused you to join?
Caused me to join was I needed an activity. I think I just needed an activity because I hated middle school.
Yeah.
Middle school was probably the worst period in my life because puberty, you're growing up, kids are horrible. But high school was a bit different. Middle school, I didn't do nothing. Maybe high school, I will. So if I don't like it, I'll quit. Which I did several times because I thought it wasn't for me, and I always came back like a week later.
And anybody being honest who's been in wrestling, when they're going through some practices, even the greats have said in their mind, like, what am I doing this for? Everybody, I don't think anything's worth it if you don't push yourself so hard that you consider quitting. You have to like teeter that fence to know that, hey, this is worth it, even though this demon on the other side of me is telling me to like just sort of slough off and do nothing. And I think that's what makes it more meaningful. Certainly from what I'm hearing in your case, because all you talk about even to this day is wrestling. It's still a big part of your life.
Oh, absolutely, and it always will. I mean, guys like Coach Powell and Coach Collins, Coach Messer, Coach Bellamy, those four help build and kind of mold my character. Fortunately, I had two great parents, so to raise me with manners, respect, and all that. But wrestling and those four added that extra spice that my character desperately needed as a teenager. In life itself is tough. You do something like wrestling, man, after that 4 years, it's like, how can I know how I can maneuver? I've been through tough times with wrestling. Some philosophies, you're not going to win every match. Well, in life, you're not going to win every match.
It's true.
It's not about the loss. It's how you get back up, how you approach the wrestling line, so to speak, to set your foot on again, and how you're going to maneuver around this circumstance than what you did before. That's how it was whenever I lost a match. It was frustrating. It sucked. You want to win. But toward the middle, about junior year, Coach Powell started preaching, it's about character. It's about character. It's about building character. We want you to win, Brian. But we're more concerned about is if you gave it everything you had. That phrase, everything you have, that means everything in life that you work for, you give it everything you have.
Yeah.
Nothing less.
Right.
And that's what I take from wrestling to this very day.
And that statement kind of, it resonates coming from knowing this background of who Powell is. He's one of the winningest wrestling coaches in the state of Illinois, and I'm sure he could put his resume up against any national
easily
credibility as well. And his statement wasn't the winning was the most important thing, it was the character. The wins are going to come. And I found in my life the losses were more meaningful. I remember almost all of them. I think I remember all of them. And they'll still go through my mind, like the really close matches that I had when I wrestled. Like, they still hurt. And you like, I think that's a good thing, though, because you learn from that. If you can move forward, you learn so much more from your losses than you do from your wins. I don't remember a lot of my wins. I remember some big ones, but, for the most part, they're just like, you expect that, right? Your mindset's like, of course I won. It's when you lose where it's like, oh, what a gut check.
Yes. Humble yourself, young man.
Yeah, because we're going to face the losses in life, that's for sure.
Yes.
So I think this is where I kind of wanted to go with that. And this segues perfectly into that because you're talking about losses. And your age group fits within a realm of, it seems to me, that people around your age group have probably never been punched in their face in their life. And I think some of them need to be. And I could be wrong about this, but it just seems like you need a little bit of pain and maybe even a little sting to understand the importance of the bedrock of hard work, the bedrock of investing in yourself, investing in building on something and making yourself better. And if you're used to just having a cushy lifestyle, or everything comes easy, or you don't experience those stings of losses, the mindset of just giving up on things becomes easier. And your mindset, because I know your character isn't like that. So can you explain to me, and I mean this sincerely, enlighten me about a generation behind me, and it's directly behind me, that I just don't understand. Because I come from a background of like, Yeah, the more you get punched in the face, the more you build a tolerance for it. Pull up your big boy pants and move on. And you seem to have that same philosophy, but most that I see these days want to cancel out Pepe Le Pew, and that's their big feather in their cap these days. You knew I had to fit in Pepe Le Pew.
Yeah, I had a feeling you were at some point. Crazy. I mean, I can't really pinpoint it as far as where my generation, quote, fell off, other than just upbringing. I think it starts at home. If you're raised, mommy and daddy, we're going to give you everything and you won't have to worry about nothing. Mm-hmm. You just go to school and study hard, and we'll take care of the rest. How's it going to fare out for the kid at 18, 19 years old out in college, and he has a first blow in school and he doesn't know, well, I don't know how I'm going to pay for this because my parents always handled it.
Yeah.
And they never showed me. It all starts at home. Like, now granted, I've always gotten teased because I'm the only child. We're spoiled. I was spoiled to an extent. I never had to want for anything and spoiled in that sense. Mm-hmm. But as I got older, I started to realize real life is coming soon. Around the 8th, 9th grade, these years are going to fly by. That's what my parents kept telling me. And they did. And then that's when wrestling, getting around Coach Powell and Coach Collins and listening to them in their life, how their parents pushed them to work for what they wanted. It's up here. You fix your mind to where you have to work for everything that you want, then you're just going to grind.
Yeah.
You're just going to grind it out. But again, it's just, and I think a lot of it has to do with like media.
Boom,
See, we're a society that we feel like we're entitled.
Yeah.
And it's nauseating to me because we're entitled to nothing. Nothing's handed to you. You work for it. And even if something is handed to you, if you're some richy kid, well, when that parent or whoever gave that to you dies, what do you have? Oh, you have to keep it up now. You have to put in the work behind of what keeps that money up or whatever it is up.
Sure.
You don't just sit back on easy street.
Right.
And you know what? If you had to, how less rewarding is that? There's no reward in that. I was handed this. Look at what I got. I got handed all of this. Isn't this great? There's no greatness to that to me. Mm-hmm. What's great to me is somebody like Powell, who took a very rookie team and built it up from the ground up.
That's an understatement. He took a no-name team, and this isn't a dig to the school because it's a phenomenal school, and they were a decent wrestling program. Decent.
Yeah, they were.
They weren't winning at national level, and he flipped it within a matter of. It just seemed like a lightning speed of progress in a short period of time, where he became ranked nationally up against private schools, which I've always admired, and I've followed those kids, yourself included. When I was done with wrestling and past the military and all that other shenanigans I went through, it was such an exciting moment to see that team build.
Yeah, it was, man. I mean, my senior year, 2011 and on up, I knew I was a part in the middle of history because I was there every day coaching, and I could see the guys he was coaching just stepping up more and more and more every day. And then every year I see the new group of guys. I'm like, man, this is going to be a stellar dynasty here.
Yeah.
And I know, but you need somebody that, no pun intended, is relentless in training.
None taken. I agree with that.
That's how you get it done.
He was also relentless in life.
Yes.
Which is an image that I think projected from him onto his staff, his assistant coaches, and then the rest of his team. And I've never actually met him. I just know him based on like other wrestlers, yourself and others that came from that school on their character. And you mentioned something that I actually want to I sort of want to preface going back to what I said, like what's going on with your generation. I think you nailed it, because I'm under the belief that most of the millennials and the I'm more of a Zennial, so it's like Zennial, millennial. I don't know what's before that. What follows that? Is it X? It's not X. It's Z. Is it the Z?
Is it Z?
I don't know. I'm just making stuff up now. It's the Cobra generation. I mean, the point being is I feel like the majority are going to basically put their feet in the shoes and fit at some point, like yourself. And just like every other generation fails by the generations above them, I was told the same thing. We're lazy. We're not going to do well, and it all comes back to roost at the end, where it's like, when it comes down to it, we really have to be responsible for our own character. One of the things that makes wrestling such a unique sport is that you're either the one who gets to raise their hand or bow your head in defeat. Nobody else can take credit for your wins or your losses. When you're out on the mat, nobody can help you get out of the pin if you're going to get pins, or they can help you with the takedown. It's all you. And life is kind of like that. I mean, you can get assistance. You can practice with guys and you can get assistance in life. But in the long run, we have to basically put it on our shoulders and deal with it.
Yeah, it's all on us. And that's why wrestling is very much a part of me to this very day. I mean, my coaches could just do that, just coach from the chair. Like you said, they can't get in the match with me.
Right.
And there have been some circumstances in my life where I've had to, okay, dude, you got to make a decision. You can get advice from Jake, this guy, and see what their intake is. But at the end, you have to make a decision.
Sure.
And I've had to make some tough ones in my life. And I think about like the toughest matches I've had. And like that's how my brain works anyway. It just kind of commingles like, okay, yeah. I can make this decision. You've had to wrestle to really understand where I'm coming from, where we're coming from, to really get it.
Mm-hmm. And it really is. It's got to be something. I think one of the things that makes that sport so unique, and it lasts with you, whether you just did it in high school or you went on to college, it lasts with you because of the demands. It wasn't like you win a game as a team, you go home, you have fun. You come back, you win as a team, you go home, you have fun. Wrestling didn't stop. You left the mat, and then you have to worry about nutrition. You have to diet down. You have weight to lose. And I know they've gotten a little bit better with that, I suppose, with safety issues and people were cutting way too much weight. I know we were back in the day. But
yeah, so were we. I mean,
oh yeah, this is just like a recent. They've been fixing some of those problems, but it was a discipline. One of the things I liked about the diet is that it was a discipline that taught you to mentally shut off the comfort zone and get into the grind, and it teaches you that at a very young age. And I think anybody who can get into any type of activity that does that, you should stick with that. Don't let that leave you.
I agree. You actually learn to thrive in the room. I was one of the guys when I started to get into it. I learned to love being sore. And it was great,
Yeah.
Going in the weight room and doing pull-ups till my hands were bleeding. Mm-hmm. It's like, yeah, I'm getting better. I'm getting stronger. That's what that means.
Yeah. It's funny because I laugh because there's this mindset now where it's almost considered they shame people with that mindset nowadays because you're pushing unhealthy habits and this addictive personality towards pain and I think there's some truth to that if we're actually injuring ourselves, but I think that's a big explanation of how the society has become so downright neutered. And we've given up on the fact that like being a grinder and working hard for something actually does have a meaning for a reason. And, I've said this on other podcasts before, is if you don't invest in something, you can't appreciate where it comes from. And you mentioned that when it comes to somebody who inherits, a fortune. One of the things I've always loved about fitness is that it doesn't matter how much money you have. It doesn't matter what you've inherited. You can even inherit good genetics. It doesn't mean you're going to be fit. It might be easier for you if you do inherit good genetics, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to happen. You actually have to put the work effort forward. You can't pay for it. You can pay for a trainer, but it's unforgiving to everybody. No matter what your background is, no matter where you grew up, no matter what your culture, your race, your religion, none of that plays a factor in you getting into better shape. So you mentioned about pull-ups and getting blisters or doing it until you bleed. Like that is a person who is in complete resolve of willing to go down a tunnel that most people are these days unwilling to go down. And it's funny, these same people can't understand why that's enjoyable to you. Why don't you explain to them who are confused, who are going to probably give me hate after actually saying all that, which I love. Bring it. and before you go into that, like, I don't delete comments unless somebody gets really vulgar and I have to. But for some reason, I don't know. We'll get into like a battle, and I don't know if YouTube is deleting them or they're deleting them. But I'll get into like this verbal back and forth, and then suddenly I'll wake up the next morning and it's gone. I don't know. I'm just saying. Where is it going?
It's kind of odd.
Freaking babies.
Man, you mentioned these people that don't understand the joy of it. These people have never done it.
Yeah.
How are you going to tell me, oh, how's that enjoyable? Why do you enjoy that? How are you going to judge what is enjoyable to me when you ain't tried it?
Yeah.
And then you want to do a backhanded compliment. Oh, you look real good, look in good shape. Oh, you think I got this good shape by just sleeping on this couch?
Yeah.
I had to get up. The AM workouts.
You mean you didn't just do a 1-minute Instagram video and just flex your abs?
See, if I was a pansy, I'd take offense to that. I don't take offense to that one iota. Because that seems to be the norm these days. Just selfie, of body pictures and stuff like that. I mean, I find that, and this is no knock to trainers or to coaches that document what they're doing because they live it beyond the camera.
Sure.
My problem is for the people that just do it for the camera.
Correct.
That make real champions look like doo-doo. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, that's a really nice way of putting it.
I mean, like you, as you mentioned before, I've watched and followed your videos and workout videos in Relentless. It's cool because I know you do it beyond the camera. And, it's not just for attention.
Right.
I think that's what we talked about, a generational thing. Unfortunately, my generation, it's like us as a whole want attention. It's nothing wrong with attention. It's just the way you go about it. Mm-hmm. And, if you're doing it just for like self, as for me, I do it for my family. You know, I have family in the Philippines. I have family in Tennessee, Australia, Spain. Just so they know I'm okay.
Yeah.
You know, and nothing wrong with a little self love, but we've gotten the rep where it's like overly. You know.
In Instagram isn't as popular, I don't think, as it used to be. I think TikTok and some other things are going to start to take over. But you mentioned things that fitness does promote. It's a lot of like self-promoting, and some of it is good. I think it motivates people to have a goal or an agenda. One of the reasons I gave up the Instagram stuff, though, is that it gave people false hope, meaning they look at something that they see. That joke was mainly for me because Instagram was designed to like do little short blips or just a picture. And so somebody would look at a picture and say, oh, I want to get that. What's the program for that? It starts with working out when you're 12 and then now I'm 42. That's the program. Nobody wants to hear that. They don't want to see that this has been a lifestyle. This isn't a program. Fitness is not a program. It's one. I mean, we have programs to keep it stenciled and structured, and that way we have something to grow from. But it's a false sense of hope, and they just see the final product. They don't see the work that goes beyond. And just like in your case, they'll see a wrestler that gets to live the glory of raising the hands, but they don't see the weeks and weeks of sweat and vomit and tears and blood that has been spilt to get that hand raised. And it's not easy.
No, it's not. It really isn't. By far the toughest thing I'll ever do. And like you said, it is a lifestyle. It starts with yourself. When I used to work out at the YMCA, I've had some people come up to me, man, your arms are really toned, got a lot of definition. How? Well, these are the same people that I would see for like 2 and 3 weeks, not even really breaking a sweat.
Yeah.
Like, how do you expect? Yeah, I my arms are good, but it's because I trained hard to get them.
Right.
You have to put your mind, Brian, today you're going to go through some pain and get psyched for it. You might feel kind of groggy when you wake up, but then when you get out of that bed and dust the cobwebs off, you know what you're going to do and just get psyched for it. Mm-hmm. It's going to happen. So just get over it and just do it. This is no way, shape, or form me helping Nike.
I did not know where you were going with that. I happen to be wearing like a Nike shirt. We're not promoting any company right now. We're promoting Brian. It's you talk about that you prepared yourself that you're going to be going through this pain. People get mad when we glorify like doing that, like the grind. It is laughable though. When I watched a video recently. Do you know who David Goggins is?
I've heard of him. Yeah.
Yeah. So David Goggins, for those of you who don't know, and I've mentioned it a few times on the podcast, but he's a Navy SEAL. Certainly, background of going through the SEALs is what where I think he gets his initial credibility, but the main credibility is his ability to kind of shut down the mental block that most people get, and he puts himself through tremendous amount of like endurance pain. He's an endurance athlete. Well, he was in Australia in this video, and I don't know what they thought they were going to get themselves into, because before this time, I know David Goggins was starting to go on Instagram, and he didn't post anything. He had someone do it for him. He's kind of hands off with that. But what they mainly saw was like 1-minute videos of him kind of just like talking and, telling people to suck it up and stay hard and things he usually says. So he was going to give these guys a workout for 45 minutes. And I don't know what they thought they were going to expect, because he's not a fitness guy. He's a pain guy. So he put them through a clinic of nothing but pain. They did jumping jacks. and they're like, okay, this is a basic movement. And so it was 3 count. 1, 2, 3, 1. Or 4 count. 1, 2, 3, 2, and so on and so forth. It went up to 300 and some jumping jacks. That was the warm up. And then from jumping jacks, he goes to jumping jack push-ups. So then you do 10 jumping jacks and you do 10 push-ups. 4 count jumping jack. And he did that for another 20 minutes. And there was no amazing moves. But what his point was is that I'm going to blast your mind into learning how to endure and build a callus to get through the suck. That it's not about like how fancy a program is. It's not about how technique works. And it's about basically being able to push through that. And like you said, having the ability to say, I'm going to put myself through pain, basically, smash myself into oblivion. And that's exactly what he did.
And you feel better afterward. Mm-hmm. That's how I am anyway. Once I catch my breath and once I take a few sips of water, stand up and breathe, like, okay, after 2 hours or whatever, I feel good that I came. Feel good that I did this. Mm-hmm. And yeah, I'm sore.
Yeah.
There are proper stretches that help that. And stretching in itself can be painful, but it's good for your muscles.
Sure.
For them to develop. So,
you should see me during yoga. I'm crying. And it's beginner yoga.
I want footage of that.
You will. You'll get it eventually. It's I do it with Molly from her channel, and she does a lot of. She's perfect for me because she does beginners. A lot of beginner stuff. She'll do some advanced, but I think she's been pulling back for a lot of like goobers like me. And I'll eventually be on her channel, I'm sure, and you can see me struggling through it.
I'll be tuning in.
I'm not good at yoga at all.
Really?
I'm better. Shut up. I'm better at it than what I used to be. Thank you, Molly.
This Jamaican yoga. I'd love to see that.
All right, I want to like smoothly segue into a skill that has always intrigued me about your ability to rap. Why don't you give us a little rap? All right, I'll just stop because that was mean. I think there's a stereotype with most things, and tell everybody like what your skill is in basically music.
Yeah. So, growing up, I grew up on opera. My mom used to play opera music, classical music. Mm-hmm. And then there was Motown. And as a kid...
Motown came from your dad mostly, right?
No, it came from my mom.
Interesting. I didn't know that. I know what else came from your dad, but
yeah,
I didn't know Motown came from your
mom. Yeah. It came from mostly my mom.
Got it.
A lot of bands in the 60s and even some before Motown. Some artists she listened to. Of course, a lot of Motown made you move, made you dance. Mm-hmm. A lot of Saturday mornings as a kid, I'd be waking up to the Supremes or the Temptations. And
I can't dance, by the way. My body moves like a gate, a swinging gate, a rusty gate. All right. Sorry.
No, you're good. But, yeah, I mean... That's what I woke up to. And going back to the barbershop story, going to the west side of Chicago, a lot of these folks were old school mm-hmm. people. And I'd hear a lot of the same music blasting from their cars. And so it was good for me to get into. It made me happy. My mother can sing. And that kind of what sparked me to sing. Now we get over to my dad, who was born and raised in the South, and he grew up on country music and real country music.
What's real country music?
Real country music is like 50s all the way up to about maybe 2004, 2005.
So, can you give like those of you who aren't very familiar with country? So, like, what would that timeline be with like the famous people in the 50s up to the 2004?
Famous people from the 50s. My earliest influence was Hank Williams.
Hank Williams is the first one I thought of. Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't know much about country until I met you, actually. In fact, I hated country, to be honest. I don't anymore, because you're the one who brought up to me about how country was you and my cousin, country is very related to blues, which I've been a blues and jazz fan since I was probably, a little bit younger than you.
Yeah. Yeah, it all stems from that rhythm.
Yeah.
It comes into country. Hank Williams was a blues man. You could hear it in his guitar picking.
Sure.
And he just kind of partnered that with his style of music. You got George Jones, Dolly Parton, Loretta Lynn, all these trailblazers that had that sound. There was nothing auto-tuned. There was nothing about them was auto-tuned. It was them. It was really them. It was raw.
Raw voice of it, yeah.
Yes, and that was talent.
Yeah.
I mean, there are some artists of today that do have talent. Not as many as it was back then.
Who in the country world would you give that nod to? Where
For today?
You could say again.
For today?
Yeah, for today maybe he's not a Hank, but maybe he can go into that same realm and make some good music.
For today, I would say like Rodney Atkins. I mean, he came out in 2004, but he's been making music, still makes music.
Yeah.
Brad Paisley.
Yeah, I like him.
Yeah, he's pretty good. I saw him in concert.
I saw one of his commercials with
Nationwide.
Yeah.
It's on your side. Yeah. He's something else.
Yeah, it's one of the few commercials that I don't mind the Peyton guy. I'm a Gators fan. Of course I'm not going to like Peyton Manning. Come on, are you kidding me? But he's hilarious. Peyton Manning's hilarious.
Yeah, he is.
And with Paisley, it's beautiful.
Paisley's kind of square, man, with his humor. But it works for him.
It did, yeah.
Sorry,
I sidetracked it again.
No, you're good. You're good. We're just talking. And so, Rodney and let's see, is there really anybody new that I? No, that's about it. Rodney and Brad.
But that was like, but so you've grown up on like a lot of these classic greats.
Yes.
And this is what developed. Like a lot of this makes sense to me now because there's some things I've learned. For instance, like when you're in high school, I didn't know that you were going to try to get into with the jazz band.
Yeah.
And then you were trying to get into voice. That one doesn't surprise me. Jazz band kind of does. But it makes sense now when you're talking about your background of like being influenced by your mom, who likes opera but also likes Motown, and your dad who's, hillbilly
Country.
of Tennessee,
Yes.
who likes country. And you put all this together, and then there's you,
Yep.
who you kind of have both ends.
Yeah.
And I joked about the rap thing, but it wouldn't surprise me because I love rap, by the way. I was only pulling that out because, that's just sort of typical.
that's kind of the typical thing.
Yeah.
When they look at somebody like me, in society, I've been told that. So what you gonna spit for us today, man? Yeah. What you gonna rhyme for us? I'm like, no, that's not really me.
And what he's talking about is he'll go to like karaoke places.
Bingo.
And he'll shred. I guess shredding is not a good way to say it when a country song comes up, but you crush it, man. I don't know. Can you say that in country? And it probably blows a lot of people away.
Oh, it's fun. I tell you what, man. I wish you could see a lot of their faces when I started doing it.
Yeah.
Here we go again with the color thing. They see a dark black man come up to the mic getting ready to sing a real classic country song. No, they hear the intro. There's no way he's doing this. And then at the end, like, dude,
Yeah.
you really did sing. And what got you into that? And why do you like? I had a black person tell me, "Why you listen to that old hillbilly stuff anyway?" I'm like, "It's just music, dude."
Yeah.
I said, apparently you haven't learned music has no color.
Yeah, that's a great
And
way
that
to put it.
I may not be able to change the world, Jake, but music is every part of me. And if I go somewhere singing what I like to sing, I can teach somebody that music has no color, and maybe they see my example or others' examples like, okay, country's all right if you're black, or, rap is all right if you're white, or whatever skin color you are. Music is universal, and music is good for the soul, they say, and it is. Not only wrestling got me out of a lot of hardships, but music too. It was my therapy to learn lyrics to songs that were about my life at the time. I tell people all the time, I either sing about songs I've lived, am living, or I'm going to. And, I do it that way because there's more feeling out of my voice when you actually live it. And you just can't fake it. You got to live it.
Yeah.
So I love it. I love surprising people. They think I'm going to do, they hear me. They see he's old school. He's kind of an old man. No, he's going to do some Snoop or some Biggie, some Pac. Gets up there and does a George Jones song or a Hank Williams song.
That's classic, though. That goes right back to the beginning where I said you are an old soul. That is the biggest compliment I feel like somebody your age can take. I really do. I think it's always a compliment because it says you've embraced the history of the past of things that were way before you, but you appreciate a lot of these little nuances that may be going away. And you can, people like you can bring it back. And I want to say I want to be the one who's overly idealistic right now and say there are more Brians out there than there are people who are just trying to tear the country down as opposed to being the bedrock to keep some of the solid standards of having a customs and courtesies and being a decent character and build it back up. I think there's more people out there like you, but they're not as vocal. They're not as willing to come on a podcast and sort of exclaim it to everybody.
Yeah. I think a lot of courage is lacking. I look back at all the people before me that have made their mark, like Martin Luther King, Rosa Parks, Medgar Evers, another civil rights activist. Like, those are the guys that took a stand when no one else would. And even as something as small as a little karaoke joint, I'm making my stand. People look at me weird. Oh, you don't drink either? Yeah, that's right, I don't. But you're like 27. I don't care how old I am.
Yeah.
I don't drink. So what are you against people that drink? Oh, you're putting words in my mouth.
Right.
Because I'm in my 20s.
What you don't do, yeah.
It's like, because I'm in my 20s, you think I'm judging. No, hey, I'm not judging you.
Yeah.
Just don't be stupid around me, is what I'm telling you. Because you might get decked.
It's that punch in the face I was talking about. More people need it. I think it's good for you. It reminds you that there's bad things out there. You know, the best way behind someone to have a little bit more logic behind their words is to be a victim of something. And as soon as that happens, they tend to smarten up and realize that the world's not all peaches and cream and foam rubber.
This is true.
All right, we've been, I didn't realize this, but this has been a great podcast. I'm loving this because I've known you for a long time, but I knew this was going to pull out more. And I want more, which is when I usually want to close it out. Yep. But I don't want to close it out just yet without asking you if there's a song you'd like to sing right at the end. Whatever song you want, it doesn't even have to be the whole thing. Maybe just to kind of, give out a few lines. I don't know. I think that's appropriate for this podcast. And then, maybe the agreement that you'll come back and you'll try a new kombucha.
Oh, now that I'm looking forward to.
Nice.
I would love to try a new kombucha.
You being sarcastic right now?
I don't want this one. Next time. But I don't waste
That's good
nothing.
because that one's not in the budget for the next podcast. Oh man. Yeah, you got to come back. You got to come with me when I go to the next haunted location. I'll do a haunted podcast.
I'm in.
All right, let's do it. It'll have to be a road trip or something. There's some in Illinois, but I think some of the best ones we'd have to do a road trip.
Yeah, it tends to be that way.
Yeah, and it's got to be on the road. We have to get lost in a cornfield or something.
There you go.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Yeah, why not? Mm-hmm. Right on the spot for Jake.
You don't have to.
Oh, I will.
Awesome.
I'm a huge Travis Tritt fan. And he has a raspiness to his voice. Mm-hmm. And so he's a 90s guy.
Yeah.
And he was hot in the 90s, man. A lot of good hits. And this is when there was a little bit of pop and country, but more so country.
Got it.
That happy medium.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, that's when it started to get pop. It started to take a new turn then too, right? It got popular again
with Garth Brooks as well. Yeah. With Garth Brooks as well. I mean, he really put it on the map in the 90s.
Garth Brooks is who got me interested in the country.
Is he really?
Believe it or not. And then I pulled back a little bit, and then I started getting towards some of the older, Hank Williams, and then I'm like, wait a minute, I like this stuff because I didn't know a lot about it. And then you introduced that you're gonna like the older school if you like. I don't know if you remember that, but I watched a concert. Garth Brooks held a concert in Notre Dame, and they televised it, and I watched it with my dad. And to this day, my dad and I were not country fans, but we watched the whole thing. It was amazing. And then I started getting into it. And then most of my road trips when I was traveling all over the place, I was listening to country or podcasts.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I learned this song.
And Biggie, you made a dig at Biggie, but I actually like him, so I was a little offended by that.
I didn't make no dig at Biggie.
Yeah, you did. You did a little dig. You slipped it in. It's fine.
Shut up.
I'm just trying to loosen you up before the song because I can't wait.
Yeah. Well, there's a little story behind this one. You had mentioned I work a lot of hours. And weeks like this, when I worked the night shift, I often thought about this Travis Tritt song. I think I might have sent you a video of me singing it on stage. Yep. Lord have mercy on the working man. So I'm going to try to belt that out, see how good I do sitting.
Stand?
I can.
Yeah, you want to stand?
Yeah, why not?
Yeah, I'll adjust this. Are you ready?
All around I hear the sound of money, but I ain't got a nickel to my name. And everywhere I look, I see temptation. She stands on every corner and calls my name. Now won't you tell me if you can? Is life so hard to understand? Why's a rich man busy dancing while the poor man pays a band? Oh, they're billing me for killing me. Lord have mercy on the working man. Uncle Sam's got his hands in my pockets, and he helps himself each time he needs a dime. Them politicians treat me like a mushroom, 'cause they feed me bull and keep me in the blind. Now won't you tell me if you can? Is life so hard to understand? Why's a rich man busy dancing while the poor man pays the band? Oh, they're billing me for killing me. Lord have mercy on the working man. Hey, St. Peter, look down for a minute and see this little man about to drown. There's quicksand all around, and man, I'm in it. Please help me up, Lord, 'cause I'm going down. Now won't you tell me if you can? Is life so hard to understand? Why's the rich man busy dancing while the poor man pays the band? Oh, they're billing me for killing me. Lord have mercy on the working man. Won't you tell me if you can? Is life so hard to understand? Why's the fat man busy dancing while the thin man pays the band? Whoa, they're billing me for killing me. Yeah, Lord have mercy on the working man. Please, Lord have mercy on the working man. Please, Lord have mercy on the working man.